and why would you talk? And that was basically because people needed to know there's nothing wrong with admitting all of us go through periods of turmoil, periods of depression, and that we need to help each other. And by acknowledging it, and I think we've come a long way in that area of acknowledging that people do have their ups and downs as it relates to their emotional being. And Alan, I am so pleased that you announced the score of the hockey game and not me. And Steve, as always, great music. And you brought me a flashback. Years ago, I was at the Imperial Theatre for an event, and I knew the musical director. Some of you may remember Johnny Bond. He was a longtime musician around here, right? Good sense of humor. So I said to Johnny, so what do you want? You're coming on the stage. What do you want us to play? So I didn't really know what to say. So I said, how about something from Broadway? So I walked on the stage to the tune of Send in the Clowns. True story. Always enjoy coming here, and as David said, I'm here to listen. I've got just a few brief comments about the state of the city. It's a tough year. Trump and tariffs and just the environment we're in internationally is extremely disturbing. And I try to go on a media diet, but in my position, it's not easy to do because I need to know what's going on in the world and in the city and the country, but it's much tougher these days because it's impacting all of us and there's no predictability to it. Some good news on a couple of major issues in the community, which I've spoken about here a number of times, is on the mental health addiction issues. We have made huge progress in the last year. The 30 beds that are going to go, we did the opening or started the project at the old hospital site at Russell and London Road. And that's going to unfortunately take a couple of years, but it's going to bring all these beds in to help people with addictions. Right now, there's just a handful. The good news is that without any opposition, and I give Blue Water Health a lot of credit for this, we've opened the Health Heart Hub just a few weeks ago at the former Skits property. And that, as soon as I heard about the province proposing this, there was a letter out instantly. And there's only about 28 of them in the province. And it gives you the full package. You have to be sober to go in. And we're very fortunate here to have Ryan's house, which is by Norm Perry Park there. And people will have to have 30 days in there on sobriety before they can go to the other place. There'll be strict security about how you behave and how you do things, but it gives you everything. It gives you the mental health, the housing, and the addiction services. And not everyone needs all those services. Many people just need housing. And that is a constant crisis. And every time I hear, well, we've got more housing coming on, it's usually, I think county's opening in the place at Marshall Golan tomorrow. It's good. It's probably 24 units. We could use 2,400. And what is happening with all the other things, you may be following with rent evictions in the community, and we're looking at how can we protect people. It's going to be tricky, is that if those people are displaced in different units, we've got one big project on Exmouth that's looking at that, landlord, where do they go? Because they've been $600, $700, $800, $900 rents for a number of years and being pushed on the street. They've got no place to go that's going to be affordable or decent. So that's a big issue. We got lots of development going on despite the circumstances, a lot of residential, a lot of, really now it's shifted from single family homes to multi-residential, which is good. And the more we get of that, the more we can help bring down the rates. The vacancy rate here has gone up quite a bit. And that's good because that made it tougher for people, the less product that was out there for them to access. Transportation, we're working with VIA on another train and maybe a shuttle service to access London, working with Air Canada to use the airport to give people direct pre-clearance straight into Pearson Airport. Not the ideal solution, but it gets us back with Air Canada, where they closed 36 different runs back in the COVID period. So we're doing all sorts of stuff on that. We're going Trump and tariffs. I tell you, it's costing jobs in this community. It's more silent than you would see. But there's several smaller operations that have closed down or suspended their operations because they can't compete. And I just want to sort of come back to what was the original message here, that this is an election year. And I was speaking in this place just a month ago to the Golden K, and I made a very clear pitch to them, if you were there, about the fact that we need good people to run for office. They need to be respectful. They need to be civil. And I invite anyone to come and see me, and I've probably met with 8 to 10 people in the last, many of them I don't know. And I always ask the question, why? And I need something bigger than just the generalities you normally hear. And I always say to people, there's 3 chapters to the book. who you are, what you've done, and what would you like to do. And unless you're on the extreme right or left, I don't care about their politics. I work with people from all political directions or cultures. What you really need to elect is good judgment and consistency. And when you make a decision, stand by that decision and make it for the right reasons. And it is a struggle for me to advocate for people to come into politics this day. It really is, because it is extremely difficult. Social media was mentioned. Some days it's a sewer. There's days I'm saying, I'm going off Twitter, I'm going off X. Because what it does and what it often is, there's just no grounds to the rationality of what's being said or any truth to it. But unfortunately, at the same time, the traditional media has shrunk big time. And there was a time I could have 10, 12 reporters at my Friday press conferences. We don't do those anymore. We're down to a handful of people, the Observer, the radio station, and a couple of other news outlets. So that's not good for democracy, but I can't change that particular thing. So what I've tried to do, my basic message over the last number of years is, and I take it from Helen Keller, who said that alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. And that's how a community functions. And I think that's very much what you talk about here. It's respect for people, tolerance for people, tolerance for different lifestyles, and different political opinions. And that's all I would like to see with any new councillors elected in the fall. So with that, I thank you, and I'm here for the questions. Anything you just matter? Just want me to? Is there anyone up there in the expensive seats?
Unmute and if you have a question.
Testing.
All right, so just raise your hand if you've got a question and we'll bring a mic to you.
Thank you, Mayor Mike, for joining us today. It's an annual tradition that we treasure. We actually had John DeGroot and Heather here a few weeks ago, and they were explaining quite positively the progress towards Indwell. And to be honest, I don't quite understand what's happened with the Committee of Adjustment. It seemed to be on again, off again, and I wondered if you could kind of shed some light on where that's progressing.
Well, my view is, for those, Indwell is the project that's down here at 333 George Street. They went to Committee of Adjustment before December, and they said, no, it's more of a planning issue. You've got to go back and change it. They went back and changed it, and I guess to my surprise, the committee wouldn't act on the application and said, oh, the city council has to change the definition of supportive housing. No, your job is to deal with the application that's there right now. If you want us to change things, and we are looking at trying to change that definition because it's a really tricky one, it's very disappointed. I talk to them very often. I believe they'll appeal that decision, and I believe that they'll be successful. But I have to make this point. I went out to DeGroot's, actually, to John's place for a big, trying to raise money along with Heather to support affordable housing. And there were people out there with signs against Indwell. And I made the comments that night, I can't believe this. Here's a group trying to create housing for people in this community, and you got people protesting them. I've been through a lot of difficult, through 3 women's interval homes, the Inn of the Good Shepherd, and I was thinking about yesterday because I was down there for the March for Hunger, and where the inn, the soup kitchen is. I met with the neighborhood at the time, they were opposed to it, and the story I love out of that was, about a year later, and started to talk to them again. They took it to the appeal body and they lost. Most of the neighbors were working at the soup kitchen. People fear things, and I'm dealing that daily. There's a project the county's moving forward over on Cathcart, the old St. Bartholomew's. And I'm very respectful of the emails I receive, but I'm also thinking the truth is missing and demonizing people who just need help. And a lot of the people, it's about housing, and there may be some drug issues. Now, that Indwell has a great reputation across this province. Only in Sarnia have they had signs in people's lawns opposed to them being here. And that disappoints me personally. But I think they'll win, and they scaled it down. So the county's opening a facility in March, the old MDM, when it ran into a lot of issues. There's a project going up in Kathleen. The new First Nation project on Confed's getting close to opening. We'll see where the St. Bartholomew's one goes. But I still believe personally, we need the federal and provincial governments to do what they did after World War II. Every veteran that came back got a house, got a job. And the crisis is so deep that I don't know how any young person or people who are displaced by renovations and stuff will survive. And I keep on pressing that with the government. You got to do more. You got to do more. Forget about letting us drink in the bars at 6 in the morning. Forget about some of these other issues. Do the substantive things that mean to people. Shelter is a basic human right. It actually should be in the Canadian Constitution. So in Dewell, I think they'll appeal it, and I think they'll win. But I'm disappointed it's come to this.
Timing?
Is that-
How long does it take for them to appeal and go through all this?
It could be pretty quick. It was the Committee of Adjustment, and I do think they were out of their lane on their judgment. It could be within the next 4 to 6 months. And then you have to go to tender and do all those things, and that can take time. I did talk to the new executive director of the Inn of the Good Shepherd yesterday, and they're involved in that project, which we did manage to get through on Melrose by Exmouth. And now the problem is they got to find the financing to make the project work. You know, we've given them the approvals. They're going to move forward. And again, that would offer 4 or 5 stories of a modern building in that area. And the neighborhood's opposed. And if you go over there and look around you, all you see is apartments and towers. And the point I want to make here, and that's what was disappointing with what I understood happened with the Committee of Adjustment. We're not allowed to zone people. We zone buildings. That's the law. It's a human rights issue. When the city approved the 2 buildings down the street here, the 2 new apartment buildings, the old hospital site, we didn't ask who's going to live there. We didn't qualify who they were and what they were. We simply said this is shelter, and it was a good project. And I think time will show that that's the same thing, you know, with Indwell. But to answer your question, Dick, I think it's probably going to take 4 or 6 months, and that delays everything, right? But it's still, at least it's in motion. Anyone else? Boy, you're a happy group.
How about our roads?
What about them?
In rough shape.
Well, to answer the question, our roads are in better shape today than ever. The last 3 or 4 years, because we're debt-free, what we've been doing is all the money we've saved, we're spending 15 cents to bankers. We're not doing that anymore. We've spent record amounts on paving and underground work in the last few years, especially paving. And our plan is eventually, there's still a lot to be done in this climate. It gets very tough at this time of year. You see in Montreal, they have a contest to name the biggest pothole. We probably could be competitive, I'm not denying that. But it's $4 million a year, and just go straight into paving. And most of it goes to the northern part of the city, because the older part of the city, it's more we're doing the underground stuff, which we've been doing for a long time, trying to separate sewers and that. But if we get extra dollars, I would say put it into paving, put it into that stuff. That's, you know, if someone gets their street paved, it's like getting a brand new street. So this year again, it's going to be, I haven't seen the list yet, and I always find this somewhat amusing. When the list comes out, and I've debated with our staff, should we release the list of the streets that are going to be paved this year? When we do, I never hear from anyone on the streets getting paved saying, thank you. I hear from everyone else saying, what about my street? That's human nature. But we are spending more than we ever have, and that's because of not having debt. We can put that money straight back in the community. Alan?
Yeah, my street was repaved a few years ago. The reason was the city manager at that time lived around the corner.
Well, that's the scientific engineering we use.
Right.
Well, I had a city manager many years, my first one. He would not live in the city because he said, if they clean my street, they fix it up, everyone thinks there's something going on. And the politicians, we're not involved. It goes to the engineers come up with a list, and I often disagree with them. Just based on personal observation, but it's their list, and I respect them.
Yeah, so you mentioned that the city is now debt-free, which is good, I guess, but we also have very little in reserves. And yet we have all these huge projects that have been talked about for years now, like the waterfront project, improving Kennetar Park, improving Germain Park, all these things that are going to cost a lot of money, and we just don't have it. But, you know, is there any hope that some of these things, especially the waterfront project, you know, that I think everyone would love to see that happen. Is it ever going to happen?
Well, let me give you a really high level, and I spoke in the Kiwanis Club here about this. The first 3 years I had the strong mayor powers, I never used them. It was a low tax increase and no debt. And the debt thing's important again because we can use that money without borrowing and paying high interest rates. For every 900,000 that we borrow, that's a 1% tax increase to you. And that is why I vetoed that police request for 5 million, which would lead to 120. But where I fault this council, and I've said it publicly when I brought the budget forward, they've approved all these projects. You know, there's great reviews, the waterfront, this project, Germain Park, Canterra Park, all great projects. And then they don't put any money towards it. They're called unfunded projects. And my view is we stick to the base, and we can do that. Like that base project that came forward, they originally said 3 million. I said, we can finance our regular spending over 2 years. They came back and said, we want 10 or 12 million. We're not the Bank of Sarnia. We're not the Bank of Sarnia. And my point on this is probably a good project, good people. Go back and do the fundamentals. We have huge costs coming with the airport. We have the Stapleton Arena, we're quite concerned. We need to, whoever's on council, whatever, next year, needs to focus on doing the things that are your basic responsibility. And that's what it comes down to. We can fund a lot of those things. That was the plan with Germain and the waterfront. And if you go back and look at it, and I've got a conflict on the one part of it because it's right where I live on Prairie Dock Hill. But if you go back when it came to council, all these, it's great, unanimous support for it. And when it came to budget, no one put forward anything to pay for it, even if it was a modest increase to do some things down there, some very positive plans for there. The same with Canterra, the same with these other places. And it's not going out. Everyone, I say in politics, many people, they want the shiny new car. They want to go to the polls, just, look what we're giving you. What about just good basic government and fixing the things that we are basically responsible for? And that's the difference. We can finance a lot of things just by our current revenue. As a former staff member, the other point, if we go and borrow, we keep on adding. And we keep on adding. So even that police station, 5 million, they wanted to start the thing. That was like a 5-6% tax increase. And right now, because of some of the decisions made in this last year or two by robbing reserves, and that's what they've done the last 3 years, they've robbed the reserves, and they're there for a purpose, but not to deplete them to the point you can't do anything. And so right now, without exaggerating, the prediction for this coming budget is 16% tax increase. 16%, and that's not including the police station. So, and that's with fundamentals that we need to do. And so that's what's bothered me is about this pay-as-you-go philosophy we've had for many years, and it's off the tracks in the last year or two. And that's been very disturbing because it's just good. You know, we're going to be we are, as of this last month, one of the few debt-free cities in Canada. And we did it the hard way, restraint and strategic spending. And that to me is what we need to get back to. There will be times in the future that we will need to take on debt. I do not disavow that. But what the new council needs to do is pick your top 5. What are your top 5 things? If it's the waterfront, make it number 1. If it's Stapleton Arena, make it number 2, and then fix it. And that's not what's happening now. Anyone that comes to council just gets told, okay, we support you. And I talked to that base, they want 10, 12 million to build this sports complex on an old landfill site off Michigan Road. And that's why they overruled me, and that's their right to do so. The police station, that's an ongoing saga. It's now become a provincial-wide issue. Because I didn't touch the operating, and I was on the board 36 years, I've chaired it, I understand the police service, I understand how it works. I left the board 4 years ago because of my concerns about the secrecy and the spending, and I'll leave it at that. But we need to get back to the basics. Anyone else before we close here? Huh?
Yeah, hi. Hello. Special. Anyway, I want to say 2 things. One thing, I also disagree with my neighbors around the signs on Indwell. And I actually own a home on Rock Street. I just did. I sold it. And I'd just like to say something about real estate. The people that are doing this are bringing down the house prices in that area because of our incompassionate. I know their slogan, but it's really hard to sell a house with 2 ugly signs on your fence line. So that's a comment, not a question. But the other one is I do live in the beautiful place of near Brights Grove, and the Rainbow Bridge. I don't know what the progress has been. I had heard, maybe last election or whatever, that there was going to be some progress around that.
Is this the bridge? Yeah,
Coldring.
It was left with the people when they took it down. I believe it was Mr. Loxton, that they were going to go raise 300,000 and come back to us. That has never happened. And in the meantime, it's a longer term thing. It's probably a generational thing, is that it'll be a tough battle. You recall that, some of you will, the Lakeshore Road used to run where St. Michael's School was, went all the way down the waterfront to where Skeeter's was. Did you follow me there? that still exists. Cities, if your neighbor puts his fence across your property for 20 years, it's his property. With cities, you never give up roads. So we have a 66-foot right-of-way all the way, and I walked it a few years ago. People have built all sorts of extraordinary things there. So that's tied into that. If we could get, from Skeeters all the way to Lakeshore, and the county's put a nice little bike path there, we could have a magnificent waterfront out there. Now, we are spending a lot of money out there on the erosion and stuff, but I'd love to see us get back that land. And yeah, there'll be a lot of opposition, but anyone that built on that property, it wasn't theirs. But that's where the bridge fits in. And again, we haven't heard anything further from the individual for quite some time. And maybe, these days raising money is really difficult for almost every group I know. One more? No, okay, two more. I know you don't have to get home to watch the hockey game.
Hi, thanks for coming. Do we, as a border community, get any federal money because we are a border community? I'm just wondering.
Good question. I had a meeting on Tuesday with a lot of community leaders, including the First Nations, which I was really pleased they were participating, to talk about the economic opportunities. I wrote to Sarnia about a year ago when they announced the border stuff. We're ideal location. We're the midway point of the Great Lakes. We're the largest city on both sides of Lake Huron. And we have an airport that's underutilized. We have a harbor that the Coast Guard uses. And years ago, we lost our RCMP detachment. They're doing their border security out of London. Made the pitch to bring them back. So I think there's a real role for us on border security. The money is going to be spent anyhow. Why not have it spent here where strategically it makes a lot of sense? So it's an excellent question. And again, it was really good to see about 20 or 25 community leaders working together to see what we can do to get into that money and also deal with some other infrastructure issues. We're still plagued with the Highway 402. And I sent a letter out to the ministry this week of the minister about issues at the new overpass there. So there's all sorts of things we think we can access as a community. I tell you, and the reason I mentioned the First Nations, they have a housing issue like we do, but us together is much more powerful as a community to be doing that, going to the federal government and saying, we need this, and this. And, and obviously we have a role to play in supporting it too. So yes, we are chasing that big time.
You mentioned earlier the qualities you were looking for in counselors. Have you ever thought of coming up with a slate of candidates that you support that would then allow you to do more things in council?
Well, it's a good question. I've been approached probably the last 3 or 4 elections to say who I was going to endorse, and I've always declined to do that. Because I look at it this way. If I endorse someone, they don't make it, it's not good. If I endorse someone, they do make it, it's going to handcuff them on every decision. I have no difficulty with people voting against myself as mayor on an issue and all that. I think it would, and then over the years, there's been a few attempts to run slates. But given what we deal with the council, you watch a meeting, 30 or 40 issues come up. How do you develop a common, because I'll see councilors on one issue this way and next issue. So I've always personally rejected it. I think you may see what I'm hearing out there. I think what you may see is, I don't think we can put it on the ballot as a referendum. Candidates running saying they either want a new police station or they don't want a new police station, or they support just fixing what we have. I think that's probably a better way to do it than trying to tell people how to vote. I personally I've been asked over the years to endorse people. I don't think it matters to anyone. Does your vote change because so-and-so endorsed someone? I think it's pretty rare. The same with newspaper endorsements. In many cases, it's the kiss of death. So it's a good question, and it has been thought about a lot. I just want good, civil, decent people. And I had some really good candidates I motivated the last time, and they walked on me at the last minute. They said, I'm too old to join the circus. And that's a sad reflection. And it's not just here. I mean, there's issues everywhere with confrontational, angry man type politics. But if we get good people there in the chamber, and then, I will say the council in general, the majority, have been very civil and decent to each other. Perhaps too decent and civil to each other. And so, good question. But for me, I don't want to do that. But the public may look for seeing who stands where. Well, thank you.